Pleasure. Thank you.
All right, now let's check out some other stories now. So the World Trade Organization says it's set to help prevent illegal fishing on Nigerian waters as soon as the Fisheries Subsidies Agreement comes into force. The Director General of the Intergovernmental Organization, Dr. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, made this known at the launch of the WTO Standard Trade Development Facility project in Abuja. She also commended Nigeria for being the first country to ratify the Fisheries Subsidies Agreement. To other stories now, see the federal government has spent about $560 million servicing the country's external debt in January this year, and that's according to the latest report from the central bank. An analysis of the CBN's weekly international payments showed that the amount spent in January was 339% higher when compared to $112 million spent on debt service in the same period last year. The CBN report further reveals in 2023, Nigeria spent about $3.8 billion to service external debt, and that amount represents a significant increase from the $2.4 billion spent in 2021. All right, so let's look at another hot topic right now. As Chinan did say, there's a Senate plenary that held yesterday with allegations that ranking senators got about 500 million naira each for their constituency projects in the 2024 budget passed by the National Assembly. Let's get a sense of how budget padding impacts the economy. Joining us now is Professor Eregha, Professor of Economics at Pan Atlantic University. Great to have you on the show.
Yeah, good afternoon, Oladi. Can you hear me?
Right, yeah, I can hear you clearly. So these are quite stark revelations here, but if true, how much of a problem is this to economic development for Nigeria?
Okay, great. First, I want to say that now the news about 500 million being released to senior senators. So my first question on that is that amount a lump sum to them, or it is an amount tied to projects? Because if it's a lump sum to them, you and I know quite well that money supply has moved from about 53 trillion in January 2023 and currently is hitting around 93 trillion. That's more than 70% increase. So a lump sum released like that might have implication of money growth. And money growth is a major driver of inflationary pressure currently that we have in Nigeria. And so one of the major effects is inflationary pressure if it's not tied to productive projects, except that it is tied to productive project. Now, the next question I want to ask is that if it is tied to project, is it who monitors the implementation of this project for the constituencies? Because one of the arguments is that these are constituency projects. So if it's going to be constituency project, who monitors that? Who executes that? Who ensures that there is transparency in terms of delivery and implementation? If that is not going to take place and it will end up the same way like the unproductive spending that we have, then it will have implication on inflation. It will have implication on balance of payment because especially fiscal spending has implication on balance of payment that will have implication on exchange rate vis-a-vis to pass-through effect to inflation. And that is why today the central bank is contending with, ensuring stability around inflation and exchange rate. And the fiscal side has serious implication on these two drivers of why the economy is in quagmire currently today. So my point is that the first effect is that if it's not tied to productive project as we have been having before, then it has implication on inflation, and inflation has implication on cost of production, which will make real growth to decline. Don't forget that 2024, it has been projected that our economy will grow by about 3.2 or 3.3%. So with this kind of spending that is not tied to productive projects, then we don't expect that growth to be realized, and that is my first point on the effect that will come on this kind of release of money.
The senators talk about the kind of projects that they spend on, and I know there's a lot of borehole sinking in there.
Yeah, so my point is this: when you budget, budget has two aspects. First is the current, the other one is capital. So the only one that drives economic growth and sustainable growth for economic prosperity is basically on capital project. So the kind of project that are being called, I don't think they are purely capital projects. I'm sure that they are some kind of palliative. You have seen where senators give out some of these projects. You see, tailoring equipment, or you see all kinds of things that don't look like really capital project that should bring the cost of production down. It's more like palliative given to some vulnerable in the constituencies. So my point is that if they are actually projects tied for productivity purpose, then that is a good thing for us. But if it is not, then I don't think that it will drive the kind of positive impact that we are expecting. Don't forget that currently now there are a lot of reforms that are going on from the central bank and even from the government. The government has taken a lot of bold reforms. The point is that the public is seeking, government fiscal discipline with regards to how we can support all of these reforms that are going on. And if this discipline is not ensured in terms of how money is released and spent, I don't think that the renewed hope agenda will be achieved. So the commitment of government to this agenda and supporting the other reforms with regards to transparency and credibility on the part of government for fiscal policy implementation is so important. And that is one aspect that government needs to look into without having serious effect on money growth that is currently on the increase and is climbing so fast from about 53 trillion to currently about 93 trillion. That is so huge. And so the way we spend the way money is released. For instance, you just gave the figure with regards to debt servicing, for instance. Debt service to revenue in this budget, 2024 budget, is probably about 42%. In actual terms, it will increase, especially at the point where HNR has moved from about 800 in the assumption of the budget to about 1,600. That will increase cost of production, and therefore government project will be on the increase, and therefore the expenditure part of government will be on the increase, and that will increase the deficit vis-a-vis to debt servicing for the year.
Okay, so how do you think, budget padding, this menace, how do you think can be ended in Nigeria? And is it even possible? And, we've seen rate hikes, since about 2022, trying to tame inflation here. If budget padding is still there, will the rate hikes even have any impact?
I think that this boils down to the part of the fiscal authority in terms of what we want to achieve. And that brings in the issue about transparency and participation on the part of the people. There is what we call the International Budget Partnership Index, right? What they do is to look at oversight.
Hello, Prof. All right, I think I have some internet issues there, trying to get Prof to make his point there. But definitely, this is definitely a big issue at this time. And if we're trying to mop up excess liquidity, we can't be passing in more liquidity, into the market. But let's try and get Prof back now. Prof, yeah, you were frozen for a bit there. Okay. You can continue with your thought. Okay,
so I was saying that currently now, transparency on the part of government is very, very, very critical. And that happens when we allow participation of the people. And like I was trying to say that there's a global index that rates Nigeria very low, around 97 out of 100 countries, where South Africa is rated between 1, 2, and 3. It means that when it comes to budget, in our budget process and implementation, oversight and all of that, Nigeria is ranked as among the lowest. So one of the reasons why that is happening is because in terms of oversight, in terms of participation on the part of the public and implementation and monitoring, we are very weak. And so one way to avoid that is to ensure, proper participation on the part of the public. And this also not just the citizens, but also CSOs in terms of their participation in the budget process. And until this is done, I don't think that transparency that is expected to engender the credibility for us to have the kind of fiscal policy that will take us to where we are looking at in terms of renewed hope agenda will be dashed. And so that is so critical currently now when it talks about budget process and implementation.
Right, definitely still a developing story at this point, but we'll keep tracking it. Thank you so much for giving us your perspective, Professor Eregha, Professor of Economics at the Pan Atlantic University. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, we'll take a break now. When we come back, we head straight to the markets. That's in a moment. Just stay with us.